Breaking news tonight, multiple people were shot at the same time a protest was supposed to take place at Normandale Park in East Portland. Welcome to Quinn 6 News at 10 o'clock on Portland CW. I'm Wayne Haverly. Our Jennifer Dowling, she is live at the scene. She's gathering information. And Jennifer, I know this is a complicated scene that you're on there tonight. What are you seeing out there?
Well, it's a big scene. There are several blocks that are taped off near the park. We're standing near Northeast Multnomah Street and 57th. I'm going to step out of the way so you can see what's happening. Actually, 55th Street. So here we can see there's a big crime scene. Police are investigating a shooting here, and we've heard from a neighbor that perhaps as many as 4 people were injured during the shooting. That's what she saw. She saw several ambulances driving away. We don't know the extent of the injuries. We have tried to talk to police out here, and they haven't given us any information yet. We've been told that they may be able to update us, but we're still waiting on that. We do know that there was a protest march at this location, and they were supposed to march at 9. I don't think that march ever happened. I talked to a person who is friends with some folks in that group, and it sounds like the shooting happened before that march took place. That march was advertised online as Justice for Amir Locke. That was the purpose of the march, and justice for Patrick Kimmins, who is a local case, and justice also for Dante Wright. These were...
So justice, I'm not familiar with Patrick Kimmins, but I do know Amir Locke and Dante Wright were participating in high-risk activities, to say the least. We do know that. We know that they were participating in high-risk activities. And people that would protest for that would be a lot. There would be in that group, not everyone, but in that group, there would be a lot of bad people. Okay? Because this is I'm tired of playing with y'all. If you would go out and protest for a guy who was terrorizing his city, a known shooter who was killed by accident while resisting arrest, there's a good chance that if it's 100 of y'all, 70 of y'all are pieces of crap. Why? Because there's dozens of kids that get shot in your community by stray bullets, making TikTok videos, playing video games, sleeping, and you don't utter a single word. You don't even know it happened because you don't care. And if you do, and if it does come across your desk, you'll just instantly make excuses for the shooters. So these are bad people, man. So when you have this many bad people in one spot, there's going to be violence. And what we're seeing now is that it's starting to be projected inward with what we saw with the inward, not inward, inwardly. It's starting to be projected inwardly. Because in Louisville, you had the Democratic mayor candidate and his staff shot at by a BLM activist. And now you have a BLM march in Portland. The wheels are coming off this BLM thing fast.
Line as justice for Amir Locke. That was the purpose of the march, and justice for Patrick Kimmins, who is a local case, and justice also for Dante Wright. These were some informational flyers that were online advertising this protest. I heard it wasn't a very large group, but they were gathering here at Normandale Park in order to march at around 9. So back to the Amir Locke case, a case from Minneapolis where authorities were searching an apartment where Amir Locke was killed by a SWAT team member with a no-knock search warrant. So that just happened recently, and people, again, gathering here to protest that situation. according to online flyers and then some witnesses who are out here tonight. We've seen a lot of concerned people trying to help collect property. They're trying to get a bike that belonged to one of the people that they said had been hit by a bullet. But police say this is a crime scene, so they're going to have to wait on that. So that's just what we've been observing, and it is a very complicated scene. We don't know exactly who was hit, and again, the extent of the injury. So we're going to keep trying to work to see if we can get some more information. But so far, we haven't been able to talk to police tonight. Reporting live in Portland, Jennifer Dowling, KOIN 6 News.
Yeah, and there will be a lot more information coming in the next couple of hours. And thank you for being on the scene. And we'll check back with you just as soon as we get some new information. Jennifer Dowling live there in East Portland. Breaking news tonight, multiple people were shot at the same time a protest was scheduled to take place at Normandale Park in East Portland. Welcome to KOIN 6 News at 11 o'clock. I'm Wayne Haberly. And our Jennifer Dowling, she is live at the scene. She's been gathering information. She got there about an hour ago. Jennifer, when you arrived, huge police presence. People are trying to sort out just what happened. What do we know at this point?
Well, we believe now this may be a deadly shooting here at Normandale Park. I'm near Multnomah Street and Northeast 55th Avenue, and it is a big scene. It stretches all the way across the park for several blocks, all the way down there to 57th and Haslow Street, and police are still out here on the scene at this time. A neighbor told us that at least 4 people were injured, and she saw people being taken away in an ambulance, and we heard people yelling at police maybe about an hour ago here at the scene that one of their friends was killed in the shooting, and they were upset that the deceased person's body may have still been at the scene. We cannot confirm.
I told you these are terrible people. These are horrible people. The police came, shut off the scene, stopped the violence completely. That processing the scene, trying to get evidence so that the perpetrator can be brought to justice, so that no stone is left unturned, so that the people in the community can feel safe because this shooting happened in their neighborhood at their park. They're actively looking for the suspects. The people who were injured, wounded, have been rushed to the hospital. And you have people down at the scene yelling at the police because the person's body is still, well, they're dead. They've been pronounced dead at the scene. There's no point in moving their body. The body's part of the crime scene. You have people down there yelling at the police. These are terrible people. No one wants to say it, but I will say it. These protesters, they're horrendous human beings. They're the dregs.
And we heard people yelling at police maybe about an hour ago here at the scene that one of their friends was killed in the shooting, and they were upset that the deceased person's body may have still been at the scene. We cannot confirm that. We're still waiting on an update from police. Now, we know that a march was scheduled here in Normandale Park, and protesters were supposed to start that march to begin moving at 9 o'clock. But unfortunately, that march never happened, according to someone who said they were friends with members of that protest group. They said that a shooting took place first. Now, some people who were involved in the march remained on the scene after the shooting. Online flyers and posts indicated that it was supposed to be a march for justice for Patrick Kimmins, which is a local case, and Amir Locke. Now, Amir Locke was killed in Minneapolis by a SWAT team when a no-knock search warrant was issued. So that was supposed to be the protest and march focus tonight. We were told again that march didn't happen, and instead there was a shooting that took place here. So we've asked police for a comment and to confirm that at least 4 people were injured and one perhaps is deceased, but still have not heard back as of the news time tonight. We've been told that more information is coming shortly, but we are still waiting on that. So big investigation scene out here still this evening, and it sounds like multiple people injured and perhaps critically and perhaps even fatally out here tonight. Reporting live in Portland, Jennifer Dowling, KOIN 6 News.
All right, thank you for that information, Jennifer.
I'm Deborah Gill, and here's today's Fox 12 News update. Police are investigating a mass shooting near Normandale Park in Northeast Portland. They tell us a woman died and 5 other people were injured. No word on their conditions. The shooting happened at around 8 last night near Northeast Haslow and 55th Street.
A woman died. Most likely a sister, man. You sisters can't catch a break, man.
Officers on scene told Fox 12 2 people have been arrested.
So we've got 2 arrests. And we got a woman dead at a BLM, well, at a pre-BLM march/riot situation. This is shameful, man. It's embarrassing.
Officers on scene told Fox 12 2 people have been arrested. About an hour earlier, Portland police say as they investigated a shooting on Southwest Broadway Drive, an officer-involved shooting took place. They say the person shot died. We know Portland Police Chief Chuck Lavelle talked to Mayor Ted Wheeler last night about the shooting and the mass shooting.
Okay, so an officer killed somebody on the other side of town. Now they can go protest that. They celebrated when they heard that, probably. They weren't upset that a guy got shot, but they were happy because they get a chance to go stir up more trouble. It's Sam H. wants you to know this happened at the March for Amir Locke last night, which the story below doesn't mention at all for some reason. BLM, and it's important to say it, even and especially when it's not trending. So this guy I guess he has a little bit of information. He says, last night someone fired at demonstrators in Portland when they began a march for BLs, for justice for Amir Locke, Minneapolis, and for Patrick Timmons in Portland. Shots hit 6 people. 1 is dead. I saw tweets by marchers about this mass shooting as it happened. CNN, relying solely on police, reported with no mention of the context. Dang, they even go to that CNN, man. Portland people, they next level will make no mistake. Shooting demonstrators in this act of terror against us. When mass media obscures terror, they are complicit. Everyone knows it was a Sunman that did this, but everyone knows it's a Sunman. All of us would be floored if it wasn't a Sunman. This guy right here, J Monk, says, I feel like I woke up to a world of death, more imminently threatening than the normal background noise of dying. There was a shooting in Northeast Portland neighborhood last night. People had gathered for a march to remember Amir Locke and remember BLMs. 5 were shot and 1 killed by a local homeowner. The full story is still being determined. The police showed up to arrest some people. I don't know if they detained the shooter person, but they managed to arrest a medic. I just read a story about mass death of Seattle off the Oregon coast. The crabs and starfish have been overwhelmed by the waves of low oxygen water, which effectively suffocated them. Mollusks have impacted by water acidity. Fails to act because the scientific evidence is not enough to develop as a standard for the coastal waters, even as human industry continues to spew out toxic pollution. In both cases, the government bodies we trust to protect the community are unable to protect us. I'm feeling sad and fearful. So 2 women and 3 men. 3 women and 2 men were shot. 3 women and 2 men. So the great incomparable Andy No, he says that let's hope the police were able to preserve the evidence in time. When Antifa carried out a shooting in Portland last August, they immediately gathered the bullet casings. No one has been arrested. At Chaz, the militants also destroyed evidence in the shooting of a Sun team. Meanwhile, while pasty liberals and whacked out delusional Sun people protest over Amir Locke from Minneapolis and Dante Wright from Brooklyn Center, Minnesota. Portland homicides this year are at 22. As of this morning, 24. Last night, there were 90. Last year, there were 92. At this rate, Portland will surpass last year's murder rate by June. So while they're protesting for thugs killed in other cities by their local cops, while resisting arrest or pulling guns on them, Portland has a murder crisis going on. And yes, some people make up 6% of the population in Portland, but they make up the majority of the murder victims.
Hi, Nancy Rommelman here. Got back to New York City after a 3-week swing through the West Coast last night around 9:30. A friend of mine from Portland was staying in my apartment, and we touched on the fact that there's a pretty grim statistic out of Portland where there had been 22 homicides in 2022. That number would be greatly surpassing the already pretty astronomical 2021 numbers for Portland, which was 92, up from, I think, 53 in 2020. So that was last.
Put that in your pipe and smoke it. 2020, they had 50. And 2020 was like, I remember covering that in 2020. It was like, oh my God, what's going on in Portland? Because remember, Portland's only 6% Sun people. So they don't have a lot of murder. And the police, you know what I mean? So it's like, then last year was 92, and it was like, oh my God. This year, they're on pace to double that. They're on pace for 180. The ground central, which was all Seattle and Portland, those two cities. And the reason it's worse in those two cities, both those cities are 6% Sun people. So they didn't even have a lot of Sun people there to begin with. And then there's this BLM rioting and protesting and just this whole zeitgeist of BLM, this wave, this movement has led to those cities' murder rates almost quadrupling. By the end of this year, they would have quadrupled from what they were in 2019. And most of them are Sun people. So this has really, literally destroyed the Sun community. Like, the Sun people were doing great before all this. If you think about it, I mean, in Portland and Seattle and all over the country, we were doing great before this BLM stuff. Look at the numbers around the country. In places where some people make up 20, 30, 40% of the population. It's like genocide. But even in places where they make up 6% of the population, few are there are mauling each other and just slaughtering each other.
Up from, I think, 53 in 2020. So that was last night at 9:30, 22. It's now up to 24. There was someone shot into a protest in Northeast Portland. One person dead. I think 4 or 5 more in the hospital. We had a police shooting had an altercation around Broadway. I was just in Portland doing some reporting. City felt pretty grim in some ways, also hopeful in other ways. But I got to tell you, the situation with the tension that continues in the city, which to me is ideologically based a lot of hatred for the police, a lot of distrust of others in the community, people that, might be your neighbors. It's I don't see how this situation is going to resolve itself. I mean, I really hope I'm wrong. I really hope that people kind of speak a little more of the same language, but man, there does not seem to be a way for the factions to speak to each other without instantly hating and instantly painting the other person as the enemy. Obviously, I'm going to keep reporting on this for you guys. You guys should feel free to be in touch with me in my DMs. We've got a police conference coming up at 11 a.m. Portland time to talk about the situation in the park last night and the shooting and what happened there. We do not know yet. I'm sure we'll hear something about the police killing as well. Okay, stay in touch with me.
Now, you have to remember that this place is 6% Sun people. 6. Okay? And as the lady said, since by the end of this year, since they're on pace for 180 murders this year, the murder rate will have quadrupled since 2019. Okay? For 2020, all the BLM riots, it's devastating the Sun community up there. This brother, man. Valentine's Day shooting. Southeast Portland. Fatally shot Northeast Portland. He's the 3rd person killed in his apartment complex this year. Southeast Portland. He was killed in Old Town. Drug dealer, a suspect in fatal Old Town shooting. Bystander says this guy was killed by a drug dealer. Wow. What happened to Karen? Karen Friedstorm. Slain by her mother in murder-suicide. Her son killed her. Well, let's see look at the way Sun people die. Man shot in Piedmont neighborhood. Found dead. Brothers get shot in the street. Uncle and nephew ID'd as first 2 Portland homicides of 2020. So Portland, they only have they don't have all 22 up here on the gun memorial, but they have they don't have all of them on the gun memorial, but they have most of them. But yeah, so this is the nephew too that was killed in that incident too, in the Argay Terrace neighborhood. Yikes. Nephew and uncle. Yikes. Okay, back to last year. Brothers just getting whacked off. And when you see gliders on this, they're supposed to get whacked off. They're supposed to get whacked off. Ashley Dawn Walker, 37. But yeah, glad it's supposed to get whacked up here because they're like 90% of the population. Some people are overly represented for these murders up here. It's crazy.